So moving on to the next segment, we brought in one of our good friends. He is the reigning NCAC Special Teams Player of the Year. He was the starting kicker and one of my good friends, one of my frat brothers during my time in college. Everybody, welcome on Lake Barrett.
Thanks for having me on, Noah. Excited to talk some special teams.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on, man. So, Dustin Hopkins has been a very big bright spot for this Browns team since, all the injuries and everything, the offense not clicking like it should. Tell me about it. Why do you think we got Dustin Hopkins in the trade like we did?
All right, so Dustin Hopkins, he's traveled around a lot in his time in the league. He started off with the Bills, never made it there, found his way to Washington. That's where he got his first stint of success, and then he got cut, picked up by the Chargers, and that's where we got him. So throughout his time, his biggest issue has been injury problems. And last season, he got hurt with the Chargers. And when they brought in Cameron Dicker, he did the job just as well. And so the reason the Chargers were willing to move on and not take the veteran is because Hopkins is on a contract worth three, almost four times what they're paying this practically rookie kicker. So when they had similar production, they were willing to deal him. And we were in a position after that preseason watching Cade York really not give us confidence that he was going to be able to turn it around, that it seemed like a smart move, and it's paid off.
Yeah, it really has paid off. He's probably been my favorite Brown to watch in terms of scoring this year. I think Matt, you'll agree with me on that. It's refreshing to kind of sit here and feel good about a kicker going out for, routine field goals.
I mean, I remember when we drafted Cade York and we looked at each other and we went, we finally have a kicker. And I don't think either of us have said that to each other until now because we just wanted to be sure we have him. And I think we have now. It's been fantastic for us.
I mean, going into the stats real quick, this year he is um doing really well in terms of making his field goals and stuff. He's 31 for 28 and he's 16 for 15 on PAT. I mean, he's kicking above 90% both ways. He's hit a couple long ones. Did he hit this year, either of you?
I believe he did. I know he got some record for consecutive 50-yarders or number of 50-yarders in a game, something that put him in Canton on a brief display for a week.
Yeah, we talked about that on the podcast when it happened. I think it was 4 or 5 games back to back 50-yard field goal makes or something like that. But go ahead, break down how he's been so successful, especially in a stadium like Cleveland Browns Stadium that's so hard to kick in.
So one thing that I'm looking at is his experience. He's 33. He's been in the league since 2013. So even though he wasn't playing that entire time, he's been around organizations and he knows how to be successful. He's seen other kickers, what they've done to be successful, and he's moved organization to organization to be able to, find what works for him. That makes a big difference. You see a lot of kickers like Cade York. I wish him the best, but when they come fresh out of college, a lot of guys struggle to handle the NFL. And so I think that experience is a big thing. Another one is that, he hits the ball hard. He puts power in it. He can push it through. Coming out of high school as a recruit, he was, top of his class for kickoff distance. I've seen videos of him putting a kickoff 85 yards plus. He can smash it. And when you're in a windy environment like Cleveland, having the confidence that you're just putting your foot through that ball and you don't have to worry about distance, you're worrying about accuracy, that can make a difference as well. And then looking at his form, I'm seeing a big difference with what he's doing compared to what Cade York did. So a lot of Cade York's misses, he would swipe at it. We had those drifting wide right a lot. And if you look at, Hopkins' misses this year, his 3 field goals have all been wide left, and they've been wide left by like 2 feet at the most. So he's just fallen victim to that tendency of those right-footed kickers to kind of let your momentum take you to the left a little bit. But the fact that that's 3 out of 31 attempts, I mean, he's got it under control. So, I'm seeing consistency, I'm seeing experience, and a guy that's just got the pure leg strength to say, I don't care about the wind.
That's interesting. So that's a tendency for right-footed kickers then to kick it like that.
Right. So when you draw your leg back and then swing through, your leg can't detach from your body. So that momentum pulls you forward and then it swings to the left. Same thing to the right for left-footed kickers. And the way you get past that is you got to make sure you're following through straight, but also getting off your plant foot, because the harder you're planted into the ground, the more you spin to your left and you miss it. And on his misses, that's just what happened. And, it's something that's hard to avoid as a kicker. You saw Justin Tucker do it last night in prime time. Yeah, it's part of the business, but he's
I
done
was
a good
gonna
job
text
controlling it.
you. I was gonna text you when he missed that to ask you what the mechanics behind that was. So that's interesting that you bring it up because I was watching the game because of course I wanted the Ravens to lose just for Brown's sake. So that's interesting that you bring it up. Matt, I think you had a question for Lake.
One thing I'm curious about, you being a career kicker and talking about like the fundamentals, is that like, say you learn fundamentals in high school, how does that play into learning in college as you did? Like, do you have to relearn most of that? Or is it just kind of something you carry and work on and develop on?
Yeah, so you're drilling the fundamentals from the day you get your first coaching, and they don't change. That's the thing about kicking, is you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and there's really one accepted way to do that. There's some personal preference, maybe how you like to do your steps. If you've got a pre-kick ritual, you like to aim your arm at the goalpost, there's a little wiggle room there, but other than that, kicking is very specific. You are doing the same thing over and over again. So that's another thing where the experience comes in. I know in my time, in my last year, I was a lot more consistent than I was. Even in my 6th year, I played for about 10. And that's just experience. The more you practice, the more you get rid of those bad habits. When you're talking about a guy that's been in the league for 10 years, probably, I know he kicked in college. Prior to Will Reichert breaking his record, he was the highest scorer in NCAA FBS history, I believe, with 400 something points. He had a great career there and probably played in high school too. So that time just adds up, drilling the correct way to do things over and over again.
And real quick before we go back, I got a couple more things I want to talk about Hopkins, just so the viewers know. Give us your background. Like, I obviously you played college football with me, but explain that your kicking history as a player.
All right. So I'm a pretty small guy. So I learned middle school football. If I was going to get on the field, it was going to be as a kicker. So I dove into that as soon as I was in 8th grade. I started practicing that, putting a lot of time in, getting coaching as well, so that by the time I was in high school and playing for my program, I was getting help from, Elliot Fry back in Columbia where I live. He was finishing up his career at South Carolina there, so I was working with him a little bit. I also spent time working with some of the major training and recruiting organizations in kicking. So I got really, really great instruction. And part of that, I got to work with, I think at one point, I counted 7 different NFL specialists that I'd worked with at some point,
You want to
including
name
both.
drop a few of them? You want to
What?
name drop a few of them?
Yeah, both Carlson brothers. So Anders Carlson with the Packers right now, Daniel Carlson's with the Raiders, Michael Pilardi, he was a punter, bounced around a good bit. Harrison Butker, I worked with briefly. He's obviously done very well over in Kansas City. Uh, Trevor Daniel, he was another punter, but only for a few years. He's no longer in the league, as far as I know. Elliot Fry, that was another one. He's been
Right.
a practice squad guy. So those are some of the guys I was able to really see. It made me better, but it also let me have an inside look into the world of NFL kicking, how those guys are training. And that helped me. I played at the College of Worcester for 4 years.
Roll
I'm
Scots, baby.
blessed to have been able to have a lot of opportunities and make the most of them, do my best. And at this point, I am currently retired. So this is the side of the game I'm on now.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show too with all the expertise you do have. I'm glad that we brought you in for this. Matt, I think you had another question for him.
I think really, I guess the big question here, coming back to Hopkins a little bit, is he going to continue his success? Is he going to continue kicking as well as he had for us, in your opinion?
I think so. It seems like he has found an environment that works, and that includes snapper, holder, special teams coach. All of that makes a difference. And also confidence. Once you get rolling, it's a lot easier to keep rolling. The thing I would have us keep an eye on is that injury history, especially now that the weather is starting to get cold. He's had a major injury in Buffalo. He had an injury in Washington. He had an injury in Los Angeles. So we need to make sure he's working close with the medical staff, keeping tabs on his groin. That's been a issue for him. But if we can keep that in check, I think we can have some consistency at the position. And that's really important. Special teams is all about consistency, and that includes personnel.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really hoping he continues his streak and it's not an injury problem because that's been the bug that's been bothering this Browns team the most. Like, I really appreciate you coming on the show, giving us some background. Is there any final thoughts you want to throw out there on Dustin Hopkins?
Yeah, I've been enjoying watching him too. He strikes a clean ball, and you know, the last thought I'd want to throw in is that I've also been impressed with Bajorquez. He's been doing a good job. I think our special teams this year have been really solid.